from there on, actually, I finally decided to go. Actually, around that time, I got involved as well. Actually, since 1983, I was involved in Native American indigenous rights.
Right.
So I had seen coming delegations from Canada, and I got involved with them. We did protests and all that, and then later on, in '88, I started learning Portuguese because I decided that I would go to Brazil and meet the native South Americans, native Brazilians.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go to the United States because I knew it was what I was going to see. I was going to see reservations that looked like concentration camps with people living in third world conditions, a high suicide rate and so on. And I thought, no, I want to see the Indians still intact
Yeah.
with their culture.
Yeah.
And that was a possibility in the Amazon. So I organized an auction with friends, artists, who gave a work of theirs for free. And with that money, I went to Brazil to buy medicine and anything they needed for the tribe that needed it. And I ended up with the Xavante tribe in Mato Grosso, who in the very same month ceremoniously adopted me into their village.
Really?
Yeah. It was so up my street. Basically, it was like my dream is coming true.
Yeah.
I mean, very few people make their boy's dream come true, and my dream was true because the chief then, he was 10 years older than me, but he decided that we should become blood brothers, and so we cut each other in our arm and drank each other's blood.
Really?
Yeah, and I got a name from that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What was your name?
Were
How do you spell that?
WERE apostrophe E with an accent grave, and that means many persons in one person.
So that must have been absolutely amazing. How long did you stay there for?
First time 2 months,
Really?
and then I also visited other tribes who were sort of their enemies, like the Bororo tribe. But I went back to the Xavante 2 years after, because I decided, after thinking about it for a long time and having been coaxed into it by letters from the chief and all that of the village to help, because they had a serious water problem, and so I went back and I went collecting money in Belgium. I had in the meantime founded my own foundation for the Amazon. I had a bulletin with the information of anything, that happened to the Indians in Brazil. And so with a few benefits of basketball and what have you, and other people who helped me, I went back and we dug a water channel, two water channels to the village, to two different villages in the same area, with the help of the Salesian missionaries. They didn't charge anything for the machinery to excavate that, but I had to pay for the tubes and the petrol.
Yeah.
And I've been back, so 17 years on, I went back in 2004 to finish my book, because I've written a book about my experience with them,
Yeah.
and to see what my project has actually achieved. And I was very glad to know that 50% of the child mortality has decreased with 50% in that village.
Yeah.
And the government had split up my tube and put a water tap in front of each hut in the village.
Yeah.
So it was nice to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I saw children who would have probably never been born if it hadn't been for the water,
Yeah.
and survived, because it's a really strong, very harsh environment where only the fittest survive.
Yeah. So what was it actually like, sort of living with the tribe on a sort of day to day kind of thing?
It was not easy.
Yeah.
Because they're a very bellicose tribe. They've been known to kill one white man after another. They didn't want them in their territory because, Brazilian history of colonizing and enslaving Indians is notorious. So there was this movement called Bandeirantes, which means basically the flag carriers, who were colonizers. Although they were not allowed officially, they went to tribes and enslaved them, surprised them in the morning with attacks and shooting guns and them and all that, and enslaved women. So basically, they had bad experience from that,
Mm.
from the 16th century onwards, and
Yeah.
always eluded the white man. And when they saw white men, like they killed 4 missionaries who tried to pacify them. So finally, in '46, they accepted the pacification and the integration process, and so it was very difficult to live with them because they didn't know what I was after.
Yeah.
And they were quite puzzled, saying that the Brazilians don't like Indians, so why would a European come over and want to help us or befriend us?
Yeah.
So I told them my dream, my boy's dream,
Yeah.
and so they allowed me to stay, and I did many things with them. I did some sacred dances. They reminded me of the Sioux Indians from the plains in America. They only needed horses, but they don't have horses. So
Yeah.
they do everything on bicycle. They have trucks now, and and they hunt with guns instead of with bow and arrow. But the ceremonies I had, they do a lot of dancing, which can last for a whole day. And they have a very Spartan warrior culture. It's very harsh. From the moment the child is 3 years, he belongs to the men, not to the women anymore. So, and they learn how to survive. They sometimes days without drinking water and so on and so on.
Yeah.
Very, very tough rituals. But in the end, I had to flee there because after the second month, certain villagers who were their opponents, because they have clans
Yeah.
and factions, and some have turned into Protestant, and my village was Catholic,
Yeah.
and they thought that I was supporting the Catholic faction, and they didn't see any benefits from my staying in that village for their villages.
Yeah.
So they declared war on me and on the village,
Yeah.
and I couldn't believe that. I was
Yeah.
like, this sounds like a John Wayne movie. But I had to run away with a pastor who happened to visit there that month. Said, yes, seriously, said that they wouldn't flinch to club you to death if they and they decided to take my camera when I was leaving the reservation. But fortunately, the pastor said, no, you can't, let him go. And they told me never to come back. But within a year, I had letters from the chief. Everything is okay.
Yeah.
There's please come back. We're missing you, etc. So I went
Yeah.
back with the water project,
Yeah.
and then in 2004, I went back again.
That must have been quite terrifying, though.
Absolutely, yeah. I had 3 bodyguards for 4 days
Yeah.
at night, because the young sorcerer, who was 26 then, he was just a few years older than, no, he's a few years younger than me. I was 29, he was 26. And we met in the truck when I entered the reservation, and he seemed like a nice and jolly chap. But it turned out he was the guy who instigated the menaces and threats to me.
Yeah.
He said that he had seen me in a magazine, or I was on a talk show in Brazil, and I had decided to kill off the Indians. And those were the rumors that were spread around, and there's no where they came from.
Yeah.
Of course, there were also in that village where they lived evangelists from the American brand
Yeah.
who'd been there for 25 years, and I was an outspoken atheist then. I'm not an atheist anymore. And they thought probably we've got to get rid of this guy because he's basically boycotting our work here, and sabotaging anything we do, what we've achieved for turning them into Protestants. And and it might also have been that the government was instigating me, because the government doesn't really like, and never until today, that foreigners stay with Indians because they can bring out the bad news to Europe, and they didn't like that a bit. So
Yeah.
I was seen as a troublemaker, basically,
Yeah.
a potential bomb. As I get this guy out of here. So I don't know whether they instigated the guys in so much that this young sorcerer, said that he was going to kill me. So he came knocking on my door at night when I had my bodyguards, and dogs were barking. So it was really terrifying. I thought, what's going to happen? Are really going to kill me? Then my blood brother said, you should be brave. He said, we have a kind of magical powder that I can throw in your body, and you will be courageous and you will fight them. He said, you don't have to, it will work. But then I didn't pick up that was kind of a shamanic tradition,
Yeah.
because I've read on them later on by anthropologists, books they've written about the tribe, who said that the Shavanti did not have shamans, or any traditional events. And I think, well, you're wrong. Because when I went back 2004, one of his wives, because they're polygamous, said to me, if my husband wants to, he can send snakes to Belgium and kill off the whole of Belgium. my husband. My husband can do that, but my father is also a very strong sorcerer. He can do anything. If he wants to kill you, he can kill you. And I said, why are you threatening me? I said, I'm here as a friend. Why would you say that? You know?
Yeah.
And they just said, oh no, it's, you know, we just want to show you that we haven't lost our traditions.
Yeah. Yeah. So, where what happened when you sort of left there? Where did you go from there? Did you?
Oh, then I started discovering South America. I've done a tour in a 21 sort of day. In those days, you could buy a ticket, a plane ticket for domestic flights for 21 days, and I got off in 5 different places. I saw the north, the Amazon. I saw the northeast coast, the south of Brazil, central Brazil, and it gave me a big view on Brazil. I even contemplated living there, but I already had 2 children by then, so it was very difficult.
Yeah.
And we sort of made a pact that, you know, with my ex, that, you know, in the end I can't stay with you guys. I really have to follow my heart. But it was difficult. I couldn't do it. I couldn't really make the clean cut and say bye-bye, I'm not coming back anymore.
Yeah.
So from Brazil I went to Bolivia, I went to Argentina. Then later on I traveled to North Africa again. I went to Tunisia. I went for, say, 10, 15 years. I've been visiting Southeast Asia and India. I spent like 10 years of my life in India. That's why I stayed away so long from South America. I just very much liked India. And despite the fact that I've been confronted with so much of spirituality and religion, it never really caught on to me to say I'm going to be part of an ashram and follow a guru or something. I thought, no, it's not my trip. So then I did an overland trip by bus and train from India to Turkey in '98. Overland trip, which I'm glad I did, because I've been through the Indus and Ladakh and all that. Something I would not dare to do anymore now, because of the Al-Qaeda threat and whatever in Pakistan. I wouldn't feel safe anymore.
Yeah.
But I've spoken to Pashtuns, Taliban people then in '98, and they told me that my duty was to be a Muslim, because it was the last prophet was Muhammad and the last religion was Islam, and I had no right to be a Christian, they said to me. I said I was a Christian because they didn't want to say I was an atheist. I mean, they would have killed me.
So what were you doing? So you spent sort of 10 years in India.
Yeah.
What were you doing during that time?
Painting,
while you were there?
sketching, sometimes singing. I discovered a place in India where you could improvise, and I did some blues and created my own blues and so on. And I've done that on various locations, like also in La Boca, which is very famous for the tango.
Yeah.
In Buenos Aires, I sang there impromptu my own blues in Spanish, or I've done it for a stint of 3 months in Goa with an English busker who lives there. Every Sunday I sang for a Scottish and English crowd of hippies. And I instantly made songs about Osama bin Laden, about Afghanistan and so on. It was like, and also my works were created around that theme.
Yeah.
Some of my works are quite foreboding, because I made a painting that you can see at the church. It's called Catwalk in Afghanistan, which was my feeling about the predicament of the women in Afghanistan, how they have to wear the burqa and all that.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, just a few months after I made that work, the Americans invaded Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So I was in Nepal when 9/11 happened, and I had quite a few conflicts with the local people who were so happy that America was bombed, and I was quite upset, because I read that how many innocent people had died there. Also even Mexican immigrants whose families could not even tell my son was working there illegally, so they could never retrieve the bodies or have a service for them.
Yeah.
So that sort of, so yeah, most of the time I've been out. So I've had a few exhibitions in Belgium, but they weren't the biggest ones. Apart from the movement, Salon de Refusé, and a few exhibitions in towns and so on, I decided to concentrate on my travel and paint there. So most of my studio work was done in hotel rooms and guest house rooms, or in the open on terraces in guest houses in India.
Yeah.
I still do that.
Yeah.
Now I use the garage in this cold weather, but I painted the whole summer and spring in Stafford here in the garden.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
So what actually brought you to Stafford then?
I met Valerie,
Mm.
and she was traveling in Cusco, and she'd been a volunteer teaching because she's a retired teacher of science and history, and she just came back from Bolivia, and she had been teaching in Ecuador, and I'd been living then 14 months in Cusco already, where I had 7 exhibitions. One of my major exhibitions was in the Contemporary Museum of Cusco, and the Sun Temple of the Incas, which I think is an honor. And so I just went for a bite in a bakery, and there was only one table and only one chair left. And I thought, like, can I sit here? She said, yes. So I started talking to her about religion, and she sort of got interested and said, well, let's meet again tomorrow and talk some more about it. And it was all about sort of the Da Vinci Code and how many lies have you heard from the church, and so we had something that we could talk about, and I decided to take her on and show her what I knew about Cusco. So I showed her all the sites that not many tourists get to see. Ruins, very, very big ruins that people don't see because most of them just on a short span of time there, and they only get to see Machu Picchu and a bit of the jungle and so on. But I took her to places like Tipon and Sacsayhuaman and the major areas, and I had by then already read so much about the Inca history. I'd lived before that 9 months in Bolivia. I had seen the sites there of the pre-Incan sites like Tiwanaku, and I had exhibitions there as well. I painted in Bolivia, I've painted in Cusco, I painted in Quillabamba, and upon my arrival in Bolivia, I had been invited by Indians and Indian shamans to participate in rituals with hallucinogenics.
All right.
So in 2005 on the Lake Titicaca, I got in a trance with mescaline for 12 hours.
Yeah.
And I had loads of visions, prophetic visions, and so much that the Aymara and Quechua Indians decided to give me a name again. And they said that I was speaking with the mouth of their ancestors. I was white, but I had an old soul, which my friend already said in Belgium that I had an old soul.
Yeah.
She's a mystic actress, and she said that I was, in my past life, I had been a shaman, and then I should revive anything here. And she said, you better go and take ayahuasca, which is a hallucinogen from the Amazon that shamans take. So like a natural LSD. And those two have helped me in seeing myself, and ever since in South America I started practicing my own brand of shamanism and held rituals with foreigners and Indians. So